AITA for insisting to my husband and his parents that I need help with our kids and we need to hire someone, and it's not me trying to pawn my stepdaughter off on someone else. My husband and I have 3 kids in our home. My stepdaughter is 9, I have known her since she was 2 and I became her stepmom when she was 4. We also have a 3-year-old son and a 10-month-old daughter together. To give some background info first, my stepdaughter's mom was not in the picture when I met my husband. She never wanted to claim any parental responsibilities, and when I met my husband, his ex had accumulated a lot of child support debt and had not seen my stepdaughter since the hospital. I signed up for being a second parent and I love my stepdaughter, and in my heart I consider her one of my kids just as much as my bio children. We had such a good relationship. She would sometimes call me mom, sometimes my name, but she'd always say my husband and I were her parents, and she adored her brother when he was born. Over 2 years ago her mom came back into the picture and said she wanted to see my stepdaughter. My husband said it would need to be a gradual thing, but my stepdaughter had a right to know her. His ex didn't like that and sued for full custody, and yes, after having nothing to do with her for 7 years. She lost, but this started us on a step-up plan for her to gain some custody. It's been hell. My relationship with my stepdaughter suffered badly because of all this. Her relationship with her siblings has also suffered. She is rude to me now, refuses to listen to me, and rejects the 3 of us. It's always worse after she sees her mom. My husband took this issue to court and the judge made it clear he will never sever the relationship between mom and daughter, no matter what. I'm struggling. If I give her the time and attention needed, it comes at the cost to our younger kids. But if I focus just on them, it's not giving her the time and attention she needs, and the counselor told us she needs to see I'm not going anywhere. She really emphasized that it was important. The counselor even spoke to the judge, a different one this time, and the judge said he was going to follow the previous judge's decision that contact is never to be severed between mother and daughter. My husband brought this issue back to court because it was getting worse. So now we're at a point where I can't be in charge of all 3 at the same time all day, especially now school is out, but even during school time it's too much. I told my husband we need to hire some sort of helper for me with the kids. He was against it and told me it was a big expense after we spent a fortune on court and therapy. His parents heard us talking about it the other day and they jumped in to say I wouldn't do this if all 3 were my bio kids and I just want to pawn my stepdaughter off on someone else. I insisted this was not true to all 3, and I insisted I needed help because the kids will suffer in the long run and so will my mental health. My husband felt guilty because I got very emotional, but his parents said I just proved I wouldn't do this if they were all really mine. AITA? Second story, AITJ for not letting my mother attend my wedding and eventually getting her arrested for assault? No names are their real names? I, 27F, and my now husband, 28M, have decided to not invite my mother, 58F, to our wedding after she ruined my sister's wedding. This happened back in January. My sister, 28F, was getting married to her now husband, 30M, when my mother began going crazy because she didn't want them to get married and hopped in her car and started honking the horn nonstop. Until my dad, 59M, and some other people came and took her out of the car and made her sit in the last row in the back. This happened a little after the wedding had started. My mom and her 2 friends walked later away when my sister and her husband kissed and the wedding was almost over. My sister was getting spammed by D, short for Demon Mom, saying that she needs to divorce because she didn't accept her daughter marry a African American, but my sister never answered and blocked her on every app. 2 to 3 days after the wedding, and D became quiet. Fast forward 2 months. I was going to have my wedding with my husband we will call Tom. Tom and I had been planning the wedding since my sister's wedding. And both decided not to invite Dee. She wanted to be invited, but we said no and said why, and she became very angry, screaming and swearing, saying that she was in the right because she wanted her older daughter to marry a white and wealthy man. Which at that point I hung off the phone. And the disturbing thing was sister and her husband was in the same room and I had it on speaker to see if she would try and criticize my sister's choice. My sister broke down crying knowing what my mother really thought. And when me and Tom decided to block my mom on every app, same with my sister's husband who had forgot to block her. 1 week before the wedding, Dee started banging on the door and told me to open the door or she would break in. I said I would call 911 but she didn't listen, so I did, But when she realized I did, she drove away and police couldn't catch her. The police recommended us to have our windows and doors always locked in case it happened again. The day of the wedding. Dee came on our wedding and said she was disappointed in me for not doing what she wanted and told me I was respectful and not grateful for her giving birth to me. But we had expected that she would try and show up. So we had hired security beforehand. The security escorted her out of the church the wedding was held in. And she tried to bribe the security to get in, but they didn't budge, thankfully. When the wedding was over and we were finally going to go out of the front door, she slapped me in the head for not listening to her and then punched my husband in the chest. The security was quick to react and held her so she couldn't drive away in her car this time. My husband called the police and Dee was trying to escape and did not get far when she did. Dee was arrested for assault and resisting arrest. My husband was sent to the hospital. After getting punched in the chest, one of his ribs had been broken but has healed now as the time I am writing this. Dee will spend some time in prison. Me and my husband couldn't stop laughing after he had gotten out of the hospital. Because of this stupidity of Dee, TLDR. In short, my mom tried to ruin my wedding also. But failed and got arrested. Let's to the next story. AITA for kicking out my uncle and making him pay for the damages his spoiled rotten child did in my home? Here's some context before I start this story. TL, the spoiled child is just 1 year younger than me. His brother also has a big part in this story. He is 2 years older than me, and my uncle always makes him pay for anything the little brat does. And let's give names. The older brother is called Jason, and let's call the little brother Joe, and let's call my uncle just Uncle. Okay, let's start this. This was less than a week ago and it was Jason's birthday, and my uncle called us and said that he wanted to sing him happy birthday and have his party at my house. Jason is my best friend. Even though he is my cousin, we say alright, sounds good, because he said it would just be a little get together with our family. We skip a couple hours and they arrive. I go to Jason because he is my best friend and it's his day, so I hug him and wish him a happy b-day, and I only wave to Joe and I shake my uncle's hand. The two brothers go into my room since that's where I have the PS5 and all the gaming stuff. We play for a couple hours, but I remember that every time Joe has been at my house he has always ended up crying and throwing a fit. Our older cousin got here. She is older than all of us and she sits on my bed. She's not really into the gaming and we didn't have chairs for all of us in my room. We are playing DBF, a fighting game like MK, first. First me and Jason go 3 rounds, then it was me versus Joe. Joe is a toxic person when winning and is a sore loser when he loses, so I start like normal, then I play with one hand and stop trying, so I lose and he starts talking his trash, but it better than having him throw a fit. A few more hours later, it's time for the cake to be sliced. We all take a picture together and then just me and the two brother, then just the brothers. Jason didn't take any picture alone when though it's his day. I told my uncle about this but he acted like he didn't hear me, he just glared at me. We all go into my room, but this time Joe brings a water bottle with him. After a while we do a try not to laugh. We all had 5 lives. Joe was losing and was on his final life, and then he laughed after it got to him that he lost. I guess he blamed me for him losing. He poured water on me and my gaming stuff. I stuck out my arm and made his water go all over the floor in him. I was about to soccer punch him right in the jaw. My arm was already winded back, but instead I yell out for help. My uncle come running as well as my mom. And by that time Joe was already crying his eyes out. My uncle just runs to the little brat and start hugging him, and then he starts to yell at Jason asking him what happened. Our older cousin was on his way out and my aunt just said it's not Jason's fault. I yell at my uncle telling him it's not his fault. Joe put water all over my stuff. Then my uncle started cleaning the water while yelling at Jason. Me and my mom kept yelling at him to tell him to not blame him. His counterclaim is that Jason knows how his brother is and he needs to watch over him. Joe with the bottle still in his hand glaring at me as if saying shut up. My uncle got triggered by us telling him off that he gave the mop to Joseph and said, "There, is that what you want? My poor baby is doing hard labor now." I went over to Jason and gave him a bag he has with the games he traded with me a few months back, and I got on my knee and I started to tell him to take his games and that we will not trade ever again because my uncle will never take him back. He was crying too because my uncle was yelling at him on his birthday. I told my uncle that he will pay for everything that his son did. And he said he would give me the brothers' controllers, and I said not, because I have the Pro PS5 controller, and he with his eye wide said the Pro? Knowing that it's not cheap. My uncle made Joe say sorry to me after a bit of fight. I told him sorry is not going to cut it. On the way out, my uncle said that I should not pick one brother over the other and that this was my fault. The next day, my 65-inch TV stopped working and only the sound is coming out, but half of the screen is blue and the rest is black. Me and my mom called him and I did most of the talking. He said there is not way that the TV don't working no more with just a little water. I said I don't care what you think, but you are paying for it. Then we started debating about his kids, and what I'm about to say are his words. I ask, so if one brother has a friend, that does friend have to be friends with both of them even though they are not the same age? My uncle says yes, if's friend and hang out and play with the both of them, he can play with none of them. And yes, with that same logic, if one of them has a girlfriend, she has to be in love with the both of them to be their girlfriend. I also asked him, if one brother kills someone and they're in the same room, do they both go to jail? And he said yes, because just by being there you are part of the murder. And I said, what if they are not in the same room? He said same thing, they are brother and will die together. And the whole time we were on FaceTime, but that little brat heard that I was calling. He stopped playing and started running on the treadmill, and my uncle said how could I not love him, look on him sweating like crazy. And for context, he was doing something his dad likes so he wouldn't get in trouble. In the end he told my mom to shut me up and before and started yelling at him. She said stop, don't start something else. Trusting her, I calmed down. And he said he never wants me to play with any of his kids ever. Jason hasn't said a word to him since then. My uncle started crying saying why are we all ganging up on his kids, and his little brat says that he poured a little water on me and that I did the rest, and he said that was true because his boy was wet. And that he is checking and taking the TV to his house, and that whenever the kids want to talk to me or hang out, I told him that's okay, buy the TV and take this one and never come back. We asked my cousin and she said the same thing I said, so am I the jerk? Check for this next. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my sexual orientation because my entitled Christian stepmother didn't like it? So about a month ago, I was sitting at the dinner table with my family, including my biological family and stepfamily. I said to my dad, hey dad, can I speak with you in private for a moment? My dad finished eating what he had in his mouth before saying, of course, Opie. Go to your bedroom and wait for me. So that's what I did. About 2 minutes later, my dad comes into my room and sits beside me on my bed. My dad then said, so what did you want to tell me? I took a very quiet but deep breath before saying, well, I've been building up the courage to tell you this. But I'm gay. There was a very long silence. I noticed my dad was beginning to cry. I started to panic before saying, Dad, what's wrong? My dad then spoke saying, nothing's wrong. I'm just really happy that you feel safe enough to tell me something that's hard to say, which completely melted my heart. My stepmother then slammed the door open and yelled, how dare you? I will not tolerate people like you in my house. Get the F-sharp-CK out. My dad was baffled before he stood up and said to my stepmother, this is my house, I bought it. And you have no right to be speaking to my son like that. You can have your beliefs, but you have zero right to speak to my son like that. My stepmother was so surprised when she heard this because my dad had never raised his voice like that. It's been a month since this happened, and a lot has happened. I've introduced my boyfriend to the family, they like him. My dad said we're a perfect match. But my stepmother has been nonstop belittling me because of it. My dad's always been on my side during arguments about it, and I'm starting to get worried about their relationship. My stepmother's told me countless times that I need to be a civilized member of human society who stays true to God's teachings. And every time, I've told myself I'm agnostic and that I don't believe in God. Dude. Okay, let's to the next. AITA for not inviting my brother and Sale over because of what happened at the last family gathering. At our last big family gathering, which included extended family, there was an argument between myself and my brother's wife. I was in charge of making up leftover plates for anyone to take home if they wanted. I gave John, my brother, and Lucy, his wife, 3 plates of food including the leftovers of the dishes they brought with them. I gave them to John to put in his cooler in his car before they left. The next day, I got a call from Lucy asking if I gave my brother the food, which I said I did. She told me there was only 1 plate that was half empty instead of the 3 plates and 2 Tupperware boxes I had actually given my brother. I was confused and said John took them off the counter, so ask him. Well, John told Lucy I had refused to give them the extra food and kept it for myself. Lucy was not pleased by this and told everyone in our family that I had stolen their food. I maintained my innocence the entire time because this isn't what happened. If that was all it was, I wouldn't have minded, but Lucy took it way too personally. She began to insult my body and weight, saying I didn't eat burgers and should have stolen the salad instead. and said she doesn't blame me for stealing because I am so poor and work a dead-end job. Lucy's animosity didn't stop for over a year, and she would always bring it up any chance she got. I am the one hosting this year and I have not invited John or Lucy. When they asked why they didn't receive an invitation, I said, "Are you kidding?" and hung up. Not the most mature, but I was so shocked at their audacity to ask. My brother texted me to suggest a sit-down between myself and Lucy, but I didn't get the point of that since she will always think of me as a villain in this ridiculous story. It was then that my brother confessed that he ate all the missing food in the car and felt so embarrassed by it that he lied to Lucy about me refusing to give them the food. I was in awe. I knew he had lied but not the details or why he lied. I told him he is a huge asshole here and he needs to come clean to Lucy now. I guess he did because Lucy then called me, apologizing profusely. She said she had no reason to doubt my brother and she was already feeling left out and an outsider, so she lashed out. I thanked her for her apology but said I didn't forgive her. She said so many awful things to me over 2 missing plates of food. I said they still weren't invited to the gathering and that they are welcome to host their own, which I obviously wouldn't attend. This made my brother really mad. They were on speaker together. A few hours later I got some texts from our mom telling me to just get over it and invite Lucy and John. I just put my foot down and said if they show up, they won't be let in my home. The whole situation was caused a rift in the family. Half are telling me I can't not include my brother and the other half are saying Lucy is a bitch for her comments. Lucy and John are still very mad. AITA? For the final one we have, AITA for disinviting a friend from an event after she gave my ticket to her sister. Back when Eras tour tickets were released, my friend Sadie said she would grab us tickets and I'd pay her back. We made concrete plans and I was excited. I've been a Swiftie for years but haven't seen her live. I had to sell my Rep Stadium tour tickets back in the 2010s because my mom was dying and I needed the money to help pay medical bills. I booked the hotel. This past weekend I was having a little get-together for a bunch of friends and Sadie was of course invited. At some point she pulled me aside and told me that she had news. She is leaving in September. I was heartbroken. We've been friends for years and I love spending time with her. I got weepy and hugged her a bunch and said that we needed to get all our thrifting trips in over the summer and hang out as much as we could. Then she broke the news that as a way to bond with her sister before she left, she was going to be taking her to the Eras tour instead. I didn't know how to react. She stood in front of me and Venmo'd my payment back. She was like, "I know you understand." I said that this was a sneaky move and honestly really shitty of her, and I don't understand how or why she would do that to me. She got defensive and said that they were under her name and that she didn't owe me anything. I was like, yes, they are your tickets. Legally, you can do whatever you want. But this is still a really shitty and sneaky thing to do to your friend, knowing that there is no way I will be able to get my own tickets at this point. She just kind of shrugged and said sorry, but I figured you'd understand. I asked her to leave, and told her to please not come back for the 4th of July party next week. I said I needed to process this and that I am really disappointed with her and how she has treated me. This is a girl who I consoled through breakups, job losses, pet losses, etc. She looked shocked and asked if I was serious. She ended up stomping off and leaving and texted me later to tell me that she is around if I want to apologize for making her feel bad about taking her sister on a bonding trip. I am honestly heartbroken that I am going to be watching my show on a grainy livestream instead of being there in the stadium with everyone. I was looking forward to this so much. I checked the resale sites and had a sad little cry about it. I am wondering if I am completely wrong to have just uninvited her. Is that too far? If it was in, say, a month or two, I don't think I would have. I just need time? Don't forget to comment your opinion about the story.